Okay guys, now that Toy Story 4's out, I've had a bit of time to breathe, had a bit of time to think. So now it's time to rank all 21 Pixar movies. Let's do this. Okay, so just to clarify, we're ranking all the Pixar movies. So we're not talking Frozen, we're not talking Wreck-It Ralph, we're talking specifically the Pixar movies. As much as I love Wreck-It Ralph and most of the Disney movies, but today, just the Pixar ones. If you haven't already, smash that subscribe button, and let's get into this. So at number 21, I'm sure a lot of people are expecting this. It's the bottom of most people's list. We're talking Cars 2. And so there's only a few movies on this list I thoroughly did not enjoy. And Cars 2 is one of them. So Cars 2 are focusing on Mater the truck. It has this weird espionage spy tone to it that just doesn't click with the character, it doesn't click with the movie or the film franchise. It doesn't reinvigorate the film, it really just does seem like a direct-to-video B movie. And although a lot of the films are family focused in the Pixar genre, this really does feel like more of a kids movie than a family movie. So at number 20, we're looking at The Good Dinosaur. Similar to Cars 2, I felt like this movie just missed the mark on a lot of things. Again, it felt like more kids humor than family humor. It didn't really have characters that I connected with, and the story didn't really feel like they knew what they wanted to do with it. I will say though, the reason that it's better than Cars 2, the effects in this movie are really good. Did anybody see the water in that? The water in this film was amazing, which I know is a weird thing to talk about when you're talking about a movie that the water looked good, but as a computer animated movie, I think it's fair to say. At number 19, we're back in with the Cars franchise. We're talking Cars 3. Much better than Cars 2, it focuses back on Lightning McQueen, but again, it doesn't really have a lot of direction. The jokes are more kid jokes, which do bug me because I do consider these movies family movies now. It doesn't really ask the questions that a lot of the Pixar movies ask, and all in all, it's a very forgettable sequel. Alright, so at number 18, I've got the movie Brave. Brave is the last of the movies I genuinely did not like. However, it still does have a good concept, and unlike the other movies on the list, it does make you think a little bit. Unfortunately, that's kind of as deep as I felt it went. It didn't have a lot to do with character development, and unfortunately to Pixar's disadvantage, the rest of the movies here just seem to blow it out the water. So number 17, we're looking at Finding Dory. Now this film I genuinely enjoyed. Some of the highlights and standouts, we're talking any of the emotional scenes with Dory and her family, that really did have that classic Pixar pulling on the heartstrings kind of vibes. I also thought a lot of the comedy did land. That seal, hilarious. But seriously, it just really did fail as a sequel, and I found for about half the movie they didn't have enough story material. So it kind of felt like one of those cut videos where it's scene, 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 but with not enough connective tissue and purpose to where they're going. Number 16, we're talking the second film that was made by Pixar, A Bug's Life. I'd probably say for Bug's Life, this is the most forgettable of all the Pixar films. It came after the widely successful Toy Story. It was a good film, and it's better than its doppelganger Ants, which came out around the same time, and it was very much the same concept. But for me, it was a good movie, it just didn't have enough impact in it, which is why it's a lot lower on the list than some of the other classics. And I guess that really is the impact, is it's a time thing. If you look at some of the movies higher on the list, the reason they're higher on the list is because they've made such a cultural impact to myself and I'm sure a lot of you, whereas Bug's Life just didn't really have that impact to it, which is why it's lower on the list. So number 15, we're talking Coco. Coco I thought was a really good film. It's one of the newer films on the list, and this is one of those films where the visual storytelling of the films really did play a huge part. It was hella emotional, and the story was quite intriguing. So why isn't this film higher on my list? To be honest, I just didn't connect with it as well as the films higher on my list. And the films higher on the list, they get even harder to split up. So number 14, we're talking Monsters University. Now I'm sure for a lot of you guys it might be lower on your list, but for me, the main reason that I still enjoyed it was because I've grown to connect with the characters. Yes, it's a story that's been told all the time, the different college fraternities, trying to fit in, trying to find their place, and it generally ends in some kind of battle or race or competition. I understand that. But for me, the humor landed, and I really liked the characters of Monsters Inc. So that's why Monsters University is number 14 for me. At number 13, we have Cars. Now, although I dislike the sequels, the first film I think has a lot going for it. The car scenes were great, it was action-packed, and I really liked the fish out of water story and the growth that Lightning McQueen had throughout the movie. And so number 12, we're looking at Inside Out, which was kind of like how my shirt was earlier today. But in all seriousness, this is where the movie started to get harder for me to rank. I love the concept of what's inside your head and all the different personalities. I also like how it's a coming-of-age story. It's about a girl who's growing up and learning how to adult, and how the brain and the mentality shifts as you get older. Or at least that's what I got from the film. Plus it's got a lot of funny moments and humour, and the visuals are just great. And so as I said, I don't really have much negative things to say about the rest of the films on this list, so I'm really just going to list off the things that I like about them. But as I go through the list, let me know if you agree or disagree with what I say. Alright, so number 11. We're talking the movie WALL-E. Now, WALL-E was one of those films where I call it the pitch meeting. where if you're in an executive's room and they were pitching this film off, I'd probably approve it for a short film, and I'm clearly not a producer, but I couldn't see myself approving this for a feature-length film. Like, imagine being in that boardroom. Yes, so you've got a pitch for me? God, I'm literally mimicking the guys from Pitch Meeting. Let's try that again. Yes, thanks for coming in. So you got a new Pixar pitch for me? Yeah, I do. Great, love to hear it. What are we looking at? Okay, so picture this. A robot. He doesn't talk, there's barely any dialogue, he's on a planet that's pretty much deserted because everybody's now overweight by a big corporation and they're all up in the atmosphere now. Yep, right. And then what happens? And then this robot falls in love with another robot. Yep, I get it. And so the robot brings the dialogue and the comedic relief. No, the robot also, doesn't talk. Okay, so pretty much a whole movie without dialogue. Yeah, but trust me, the emotion and the visuals, that's what's gonna sell it. Well, alright, I mean, the rest of our movies have been widely successful, so I guess we can do whatever we want. Let's give it a crack. So I couldn't see this movie actually working. And yet, it works. You feel so much emotion in Wally's eyes. You can feel the humor. The visuals are great. This is one of those perfect examples of show not tell. Plus the concept of the whole by and large, with the humans overweight in the chairs and they don't do anything, and the little robots do all the little things you need to do. That's a cool concept. Granted, I do not want that happening. I mean, take a walk around the block at least. But the concept itself was cool. Moving on. Alright, top 10 now. This is where we get into the real nitty gritty. And to be honest, this top 10 list, any of these films could be your number one pick. And as soon as it is, write it down in the comments. Let me know. And also, obviously, let me know why it's so good. So at number 10, we're looking... Sorry, I was just looking up. Because that's the movie title. God, that was lame. I've noticed since I've started this channel, I've been doing a lot more lame jokes. I have not always done lame jokes, Tim. Maybe I have. Number 10's up, is what I'm trying to say. Now, this opening scene alone, if you've seen the movie, you obviously know what I'm talking about. But the opening scene alone is probably one of my favorite scenes in movies. The relationship that starts, grows, and finishes within a couple of minutes. It gets you here. And the rest of the movie's good, don't get me wrong. But if the whole movie was as good as that opening scene, this could easily be my number one film. Number 9, we're looking at Toy Story 3. Now you can clearly see how much I like the Toy Story franchise. We're already at number 9, and this is the first Toy Story movie on the list. Now if I said to you the third installment of an animated movie could be considered one of the best films of all time, and is in a lot of people's top 10 lists of all-time films, you'd think I was crazy. You'd lock me up, wouldn't you? I know you would. But here we are. This is a great film, and the only reason it isn't higher on the list is just purely because I didn't connect with this story as well as I did the other films on the franchise. Number 8, we're looking at The Incredibles 2. This sequel took forever to come out, but it was worth it. I love the 60s spy aesthetics that they had in the original, and they doubled down in this movie and they pulled it off. They also inspired a lot of great cosplays by introducing new characters, and they kept the tone of the first film, and I'd say it's probably equally, if not more, hilarious. And so the writer and director of this film, Brad Bird, this is the third film that he's done for Pixar, but the first film that's been on my list so far. This is clearly a great film. This is a lower film on the list, and yet I still love it. Speaking of loving it, that brings us into Toy Story 2, which comes in at number 7. Now this movie holds a dear place to my heart as it is. It was the first film that I ever saw in the movies. I don't remember it, so Mum might have been lying, but I distinctly remember her saying that within the opening credits I was in tears asking to leave. I don't know why. I mean, Zurg is scary as hell and still gives me nightmares. He doesn't give me nightmares, but at the time he was scary as. This was one of those films that was originally going to be direct to DVD, or I guess video at the time. God, technology moves so fast. And as they were making the film, the writers, directors, producers, everybody on board started going, hey, you know what guys? This is good. This is really good. And so they put it into the movies, and the rest is history. And if it did go direct to video, I can't see number 3 and number 4 being made. So number 6, we're looking at Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo was a great film. It was a great adventure film. There was a lot of characters in this movie, and they all gelled. And I really did like how they had characters come in and come out of the story, and yet they managed to have pretty much all of them have a deep impact. I mean, the character Bruce, he was in the movie for what, 5 minutes? And people still repeat the line, "Fish are friends, not food." And that really does show the connection that the movie had with the audience. Now at number 5, we're looking at Ratatouille. And again, like Wall-E, this is one of those films with a weird premise. On the surface, it's about a rat that likes to cook. But underneath the surface, there's heart, there's humor, there's really good action sequences. And it's the second film on this list directed by Brad Bird. And I also remember watching it as a kid, seeing him make the Ratatouille going, I could have a bit of that. and yet I've never tried it. Alright, at number 4, we're looking at the most recent film, Toy Story 4. If you haven't seen the film yet, there's no spoilers. Go check it out and check out my review for it. It's linked down below. Now, I'd say this is the funniest of the Pixar films. I'd also say it's the most emotional of the Pixar films. This is a film that just blew it out of the water. Again, like with Toy Story 3, who would have thought that the 4th movie in the franchise would be such a good film? They show growth in the characters, and just overall, I just love this film. And it's obviously not as high as the first Toy Story, purely for me, again, just on nostalgia. But if this was the first Toy Story film that you'd ever seen, I can 100% understand if this is your number 1 film from Pixar. Alright, so we're nearly there. If you want to go get a snack, get a chocky bar, popcorn, protein shake, whatever you're into, pause the video, go get it now, and then come back and we'll smash out that top 3 list. You back? Good stuff. How was the protein shake? Excellent. Let's get into it. Okay, at number 3, we're looking at Monsters, Inc. There's not much to say about this film. It's one of the OG Pixar films. The chemistry between the characters still holds up today. The film still holds up today. And when I was watching this film for the first time, I was a little kid, and it was nice to know that the monsters in the closet weren't actually there to be real monsters. They were there, you know, to get a paycheck. Which now, as an adult looking back, I understand. Because, you know, we need money. Number 2, we're looking at the OG Incredibles film. This is my favourite film by Brad Bird. It's one of my favourite movies of all time. I love 60s spy films. Check. I love superhero films. Double check. And on top of that, throw in a great story, great characters, a great villain in Syndrome, along with great humour which ties into the characters because it's the chemistry between the characters which gives such good humour, which is why when the second Incredibles film came out, it made over $1 billion. So this is my number 1 choice. I know it's probably not going to be everybody's number 1 choice, but for me, I love this film. It's one of my top 10 favourite films of all time. And you know what it is, we're talking the original Toy Story. Like all the other films, I could talk about how great the film is, how good the characters are, how good the story is, how good the humor is, the chemistry, the emotion, like most Pixar films have. But on top of that, it was the first feature-length computer animated film, and it changed the landscape, for good or bad, how we look at modern animated movies. But as I've said for a lot of the other movies, it just brings the most nostalgia for me. I grew up on this movie. I had the toys for this movie. I was a Buzz man. I watched the Buzz TV show. I collected the toys. The scenes are just memorable for me. And that's really what's going to define my favourite film to your favourite film, is purely on which film connects the most with you. Because most of the films on this list are excellent films, all with unique stories. And it really comes down to which story connects most with you, which is what Pixar movies do the best. Whew, man. So there we go, guys. That's all 21 Pixar films ranked. Pixar has brought to us some of the greatest animated films of all time, and they almost always consistently bring quality material that most of us like. As I keep saying, most of these movies can be interchangeable, so I really want to hear what movies you guys like. Let me know down in the comments if it's your favourite movie, your top 3, your top 5, your top 7. Whatever you want to tell me, let me know down in the comments. Love to hear it, love to comment back to you. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications if you haven't. Thank you so much for commenting, liking and subscribing. It means a lot to me. I'm just happy that you guys are here, watching along with me. Make sure to check out my other great content on the channel. There's a lot more to come. And as always, work hard and be lucky.